Part 2 of our tutorial series will be performing some basic commands in digitizing in ArcMap. First thing we want to do is under Catalog, we want to create a folder connection to where we store all of our GIS data. For the Andalusia office, we're going to connect to the GIS folder. You can create a new folder connection, which is just simply a shortcut to folders where you would do a lot of work or where you store data by, under Catalog, right click on Folder Connections and connect to a folder. You then just navigate to the folder location, and select the folder and hit OK. And then in your folder connections the folder will show up. You can expand it and see all of the data in it. You can see here we have several different counties and other featured data sets. You can select a featured data set, which in this case the emblem indicates as a polygon for Alabama counties 2, and click it and drag it to the data pane and it will add it. Now it placed the Alabama counties shapefile in the layers, and it also just shows in the data plane. One thing we have not done yet is you need to set up the spatial coordinate system that you'll be working in. In our case, we're going to be doing some work down in Andalusia, so I'm going to set it to Alabama State Plane East. You set a data plane values by going to View, Data Frame Properties. Under the Data Frame Properties toolbox, you go to Coordinate System, Projected Coordinate System, State Plane, NAD 83 in our case, and there's Alabama East and Alabama West. Now if this is the first time you've done this, you can select Alabama East and hit the Add to Favorites toolbox and it will add it to your favorites. I would recommend doing it for both East and West. And it will show up here under your favorites. And we're choosing Alabama East, and it populates down here, and just hit OK. It will ask if you already have data in your data plane. It will tell you that you're just going to reproject it, and you just hit yes. You notice how it changed the shape. Now like I said, we're going to be looking down here in Andalusia, so I will select the zoom in button from the top and create me an area down here. Now we have Conan County, but we're not sure where Andalusia is. So now that we know we're looking in the general area, I will turn off the Alabama counties. And now we're going to add a base map. You can add a base map by going to File, Add Data, Add Base Map. Here are several prefabricated options that are available through ArcMap for base maps, or under File, ArcGIS Online, you can view a plethora of maps that have been created by other people or organizations for base maps, such as the US Topo, which are the USGS quads. When you select something from ArcGIS, you just hit Add. And the globe's spinning, and you can see that it's got the quads. And these quads change resolution on different types of quads depending on where you zoom in. Now in our case, we don't want the quad. We want to add the Bing Hybrid. So I'll select Bing Map Hybrid, which is aerial photos and roads, and just hit OK. It pulls this data from an online source. So as long as you are at an office computer and connected to the internet, you'll be able to see this data. Sometimes the data sets are so large that you need to click the refresh button down at the bottom, and it'll refresh the view. Now we're going to be working in Andalusia, so I'm going to zoom in a little closer so I can see it. And as you can see, as the closer you zoom, it will change data resolutions. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some shapefiles. We're going to add a line shapefile, polyline feature for River Falls Street, and we're going to add a point some point features for some buildings here in Andalusia, and I'm going to show you how to select data from another feature set and extract it out for a separate one. Let's do the extraction first. So now that we've zoomed into Andalusia, so that we don't have to keep zooming in again, we can create a bookmark. You go to Bookmarks, create a bookmark, and type Andalusia. And what this allows you to do, I'm going to turn off base map just so it'll move faster, turn the counties back on. You can right click on a layer and go to zoom to layer, and then zoom to the full extent. So there's that. And if I go to my bookmarks, it'll zoom right back in to where Andalusia was, as you can see. So let's turn counties back on and zoom to layer. Now, I want to have just Covenant County by itself and not all the counties in the state. You can view the individual data entries for any shapefile by right-clicking on the feature and going to Open Attribute Table. And what that does is opens up this tabular view of all of the different fields, which are the columns, and entries, which are the rows. And here, the county name is under the name column. You can sort data by right-clicking on the column name and saying sort ascend or sort ascending. We're going to do ascend. And there they are. And we are looking for Covington County. If I select the row for Covington County, you will see that it is selected in the data plane. Or I can come down here and clear this, and you can select data graphically using the Select Features dataset. If you click and hold that, you have several different ways of selecting data. I'll choose a lasso and draw it around Covington County. Now notice that it's selected all the features I drew a line through, not just Covington County. If I open my data, my attribute file, you can see several different ones that are selected by the blue areas. Now this view can be even further sorted by showing all the entries or just the ones you have selected by these two buttons, by Show All Records or just Selected Records. Just that easy. Now I'm going to clear my data set, and since we want just Covington County, I'm going to select it from Tabular View. With the data selected, you can right click on the feature, go to Data, Export Data. Now notice that here the Export Data window will pop up. Under Export, you have all features, select features, all features in your view. We want to do the one that we have selected, and you simply tell it where you want to export it. I'm going to call it, make sure it's on shapefile, and export it as Covington County. A good habit to get in is to not put spaces in your shapefile names. And hit save. When I hit OK, it's going to export it and will ask if I want to add it to my view, which I do. And there it is. A key concept of data plane properties are that the layer or shapefile that is on top graphically. As we saw, this, we'll clear my view, includes all counties. If I moved the Covington County under it and turned it on, I can't see it. But if I move it above it, you can see it. That's an important concept whenever you start working on maps and you're worrying about how things are viewed. So I'll turn Alabama counties off and turn Covington County back on and turn on my base map. Notice that this is an opaque solid object. I cannot see anything through it. This can be changed by changing the transparency of the object, and this is only applicable for polygon features. You can change that by right clicking on the feature and going to Properties, and this opens up. We'll spend a lot of time in this box throughout the tutorials. In the case of transparency, it is under Display, Transparency, and I'll change mine to 50% so we can see through it. Now I can see where Covington County is and I can see the things that are under it. That concludes exporting data from a larger data source. Next, we're going to create some features that are empty and then digitize River Falls Street. We'll create a brand new shapefile by going to Catalog, navigating to where you want the feature to be stored, right click on the folder and say New Shapefile. Shapefile has several different types, being points, polylines, polygons, multipoint, and multipatch. We'll work with the three primary ones. In this case, a polyline, and I will name it River Falls Street. An important thing to do is always assign a special reference if you have one. And I just click Edit, and because we added it to the favorites, it's right here available for me to select quickly. And just hit OK. It's going to tell you the transformations, and just hit Close. Notice that it showed it up in the folder and it added it to my layers. Now granted, it's completely empty at this time, there's nothing in there. We're going to digitize River Falls Street. So let's zoom in on River Falls Street, and we're just going to draw a line on top of this to represent it. You cannot just draw in the data view unless you are in an editing session. The best way to do that is to right click on the feature that you wish to edit and go to Edit Features, Start Editing, and this separate selector will pop up. Something I like to keep open is under Editors, Editing Windows, Create Features, and I'll pin it like we did before. Under the Create Features, you can select which one you want and tell it what type of element you wish to construct, in our case a line. Once I select line, you notice that my reticle changed and allows you just to left click wherever you want to place vertices of your line. Once you're done, you right click and say Finish Sketch, and it will draw in the line and it's automatically selected. I'll clear the selection. And then stop your editing session by going to Editor, Stop Editing. It will ask if you want to save your edits, and if you do, you select Yes. Now we drew that line, but it's very hard to see on this aerial. So we're going to play with the symbology of the feature. That can be done by either double clicking on the icon, or by right clicking in Properties under the symbology. In our case, for now, we have a single symbol for it. You select this icon and it will open up all of Ezra's pre-built in types. And we're just going to change this to bright red and make it a heavyweight so we can see it, and hit OK, and there it is. Just that simple. Next, we're going to create a point feature set. Repeat the same steps. Go to Catalog, select your feature, right click, New, and Shapefile. In this case, a point feature. And we're going to call this Major Sites. Select your special reference, hit OK, and close. And there's our major cities. Now we already know that dark dot's going to be hard to see on this aerial. So since we did a symbology, we're going to go ahead and change it, and I'm going to change it to a star and make it neon yellow. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Now to place the features, remember you right click, Edit Features, Start Editing. Under Feature Dataset, you'll now see that I've got two different ones. We want to do Major Sites as a point. I'm going to place on top of the courthouse, the high school, By the way, I'm panning by using the middle button in the mouse. Give it a moment to refresh. Depending on your internet speed and how much data you have, it depends on how fast this refreshes. And right here on top is the CDG offices in Andalusia. And that's all I want to do. So I will go to Editor, Stop Editing, Save Changes, Yes. Now if I turn my base map off, I can zoom to layer and see my 3 stars. Turn my base map back on, give it a moment to refresh. If the globe is spinning, it is thinking. You can see the 3. Now, we created an empty feature. Let me show you the difference between when we copied Covenant County in the previous exercise from another feature set, and these two we've made from scratch. Since I copied it, it carried all of those attributes that were in the parent feature. When we create a new one, it is exactly as it is, new, completely empty of any data unless we give it other than a spatial location. Now we have our 3 dots, and remember that it was the courthouse, the high school, and CDG. But how we're going to tell anybody else that's what these are? So we're going to add a field or a column to the shapefile that's the name. And this must be done, adding a field or deleting a field must be done outside of an edit session. And you can do that by right clicking and opening it at table view. Here on the left, click this and add a field. I'm going to call it name, and the type is very important, and we will be typing text, so it is text. If you want to mess with the length, limit it to a number of characters or make it longer than 50 if necessary, feel free to do so. And OK, and here it is. Now, we created the field outside of an edit session, but we cannot populate it without being in an edit session. So I will leave the table open and begin an edit session. Now that we're editing, I can double click each one of these. Now just looking at this in table view, you don't know which dot is which. I'm going to take this table and dock it on the bottom and show you a nifty little feature. Now we don't know which one is which. You can select on the left to select a row and use this zoom to selected, and it will zoom to the feature that you have selected. In this case, it is the courthouse. Now that I know where I'm at, I can populate it. And we'll do the same for the other 2. Now that they're populated, we'll end our edit session. I'm going to undock this so that I can close it and get some view space back. And zoom to layer. Now we've got those 3 point features. But just looking at them here on the screen, it's hard to tell which one's which. So we're going to go ahead and label the features. You can create a label under right click and properties. Labels. Labels will label a specific field of which you tell it. In this case, the default is ID. We created the name field, so we'll select the name and leave the rest as it is and hit OK. You immediately think, well, it didn't label it. What am I supposed to do? You were telling it how you wanted it to label, not to label it. You can either select it here or right click, and this toggles a checkbox on and off, which allows you to label features. And they're now labeled. We do the same thing for our River Falls. Let's zoom to it. If we open it, there's nothing in there. We are not in an editing session, so we will add a field. Call it name, text, and OK. We're beginning an editing session on that feature, and we'll call it River Falls Street. And in the editing session. And the reason we did both of these is because I want to show you the difference in the way that these two features label. I'll do the same thing, go to Properties and Labels and change the label to Name. Hit OK and turn Labels on. Notice where it's at. Now when we look at these, see these at the top left corner. You can mess with where labels are by going to the Labels tab, Placement Properties. And there's different options depending on what type of feature set. Now we are looking at a point feature set. And these allow you to choose a location, where to place them. And you can change, let's say you don't want aerial, you want aerial old face and you want to make it 12 and bold. If I hit apply, you'll notice that it changes. Esri also has several built-in symbologies. By clicking the symbol button, you can see several prefabricated symbologies, such as the banners. And that's for point features. For a line feature, Properties, Labels, Placement Properties, you can choose whether the text is always horizontal, whether it's curved if you have a curved feature, perpendicular, parallel. In that case, we're going to leave it parallel. And you can tell it to be above, below, or on the line. We're going to switch it from above to below just to show you. Hit OK and OK, and it moves it. If this had been several different segments and you wanted each segment to be labeled, you would have to select the place one label per feature. Now we have digitized both point features, line features, and we have copied a polygon feature from it. And that concludes our tutorial for some basic digitizing commands in Esri.